I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly. I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships. It creates language for what motivates us and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the enneagram's a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name is Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado for one more week. And with me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and enneagram ninja.
Hello. Welcome back, friends. This is the second part of our step 3, naming your low side. If you haven't already heard it, you should stop here and go back to our previous episode, part 1. If you have already heard it, we're going to pick up here with type 7 in excess.
Sevens are going to avoid pain and become impulsive and irresponsible. And that's all about security. It's security in a way that saves them from grief. It's a move towards security that saves them from having to deal with any past issues, any past failures, anybody's impression of them. It's if I move toward avoiding pain, and sometimes that may appear irresponsible, that doesn't really matter.
Right. And abandonment, almost intentionally moving away from what other people think.
Yep.
3s, 7s, and 8s all struggle with understanding how their behavior affects other people, and in excess, that gets worse. 7s have a much easier time leaving things half done, and it doesn't matter who around them gets hurt because they left that thing half done.
Exactly right. We haven't even mentioned this, but if you want to go back and listen to all of the things we've said and then insert your repressed center, it's all over the things that we struggle with in excess.
Yeah.
But this would be it for 7s. 7s are feeling repressed, and that emerges in how they live in excess.
Yeah. And they can get really, really good at sort of systematizing the things that they're moving through. And like let's go to the next thing. Let's like create a system for how to get past whatever negative experiences I don't want to deal with.
Notice how that's pulling the low side of 1. You get systematic. There's an anger that comes in. There's a doom loop for 7s for sure.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna pull some of the low side of your stress number at 1 and become more angry, become more impatient, become more self-critical, become more critical of others, and all of a sudden that is just, it's a doom loop.
Yeah. Well, and where 7s typically, like 7s really want to have a good time, and they want to enjoy life, and they want other people to enjoy life too. And when 7s sort of pick up that disintegration, that unhealthy part of 1, and move into excess, they want to enjoy their life in more and more the improvements. Like we can do this better, and if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it myself.
Control comes in at that point, for sure. My way comes in at 1.
Yep.
8s are going to become increasingly self-protective and at the same time dictatorial. The energy there really needs to get named. You don't see the fact that 8s are motivated by not wanting to feel vulnerable, but that's where excess gets its power.
Right.
And it's all about control.
Right. It's the worst people from the worst stories can be shown as this kind of excess. It's people who are enacting their will and they do not care about how it affects other people.
Yep.
They want things their way, period. My way or the highway comes from the excess of 8.
Give that person physical power, give that person $1 billion, give that person an army. That's a lot of the villains in movies end up
give them
being
infinity
portrayed.
stones. It's this is how it works. We're going to do things my way, and I don't care what you think.
It's all about self-protection.
Yeah.
That's the rest of us don't understand that.
Yep.
But that's what it's about. That's compounded in the fact that 8s in stress move into that withdrawn, isolating space.
Mm-hmm.
That 5 space that is building up walls where it's just like, I'm going to live in my head in a nihilistic posture.
Yeah.
That can be devastating to a human being. That can be devastating to the relationships around you.
Mm-hmm.
So just 8s, the caution that needs to be voiced here, that this can be, you have to get that under control or you're going to hurt people.
This is also the place where 8s, like unhealthy 8s, can pick up this incredible ability to compartmentalize their internal self from 5. And this is the place where like you wall yourself off. It's not just walling off yourself. It's walling off this part of you that you're trying to protect and putting it on a shelf. And now the only thing that's left is power and control and domination and carnal lust.
It might be worth just saying at this point, because I feel the need you really need to go back to our Suzanne Stabile interview about the high side.
Yep.
Because there's a different place to land.
Yep.
There are so many great tools for 8s when they go to 5, but you gotta grab hold of that tool.
Yep.
If you don't grab hold of that tool, you're gonna hurt some folks.
Yep.
But if you grab hold of the tool that's there at 5, you can move into really healthy spots.
Yeah.
9s are going to double down on everything being okay. They're going to resist change, not going to want to confront problems. All of that is about control.
Yeah.
The pocket veto is my
veto.
favorite term recently for 9s.
The pocket veto, the couch potato, the extreme merging, like the worst parts of how we talk about 9s. That's what 9s in excess look like. I hurt my toe last week, and because I hurt my toe, basically I've spent a week on the couch playing video games, and it's driving me crazy because like I can't do anything else. And if I lived like this, which I have had portions of my life where this is how I lived, this would be me in excess. Laying on the couch playing video games instead of doing any of the things that I'm supposed to do.
You know what's going to compound all that is some paranoia, some suspicion.
All of those things make it worse.
Not trusting your body.
Yep.
All of that stuff at 6.
This is actually how I realized that like disintegration leads to excess, because 9s, when they disintegrate, they pick up anxiety, unhealthy thought, disintegration. Like we break down. We like everything is going to go wrong. And you know what is one of the best ways to stop worrying about everything that's going to break is to shut off your brain and go play video games and just abandon your responsibilities and the things like everything else. Just forget about that and find peace in this space where you're not doing anything productive. Disintegration can lead to excess, and that's excess for 9s, is just, sort of giving up.
I don't want to monopolize time here, but just as you're talking, I had an epiphany. My beloved mother, who I've mentioned a handful of times, is a 9. If you look at pictures of her from the 60s and 70s, the woman is a supermodel. Incredibly put together, attractive Southern woman, and her whole body fell apart about 15 years before she passed. Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening in her experience was she stopped trusting her body.
Yeah.
And I hadn't put that together. And it's just all over our story.
Yeah.
After she died, we had to go and clean out her house, and underneath her bed, we found like 20 empty boxes, empty wine boxes that just hadn't been dealt with.
Yeah.
And just I'm trying to make this as fast as possible for the nines who I love. That image of not trusting your body, and then how that moves in excess for the 9, of resisting change, confronting problems. That was a lot of her story as her life came to an end. And this can be a lesson for 9s. It can be a lesson for everybody, that if you live in excess, that can just be a rut you can't get out of unless you can name it and say, this is the thing that's gonna get me.
Yeah.
In the end,
Yep. And like for all types, like just like with disintegration, you have to figure out how you express your type's disintegration. For me personally, disintegration looks like giving up and laying on the couch playing video games. There are 9s in my life where disintegration actually looks like more and more activity that doesn't matter. And it's a disassociation with the things that are important and leaning into ways to sort of cover up the like to gain control by creating artificial peace. And if artificial peace for you looks like a flurry of activity, that's fine, but that's probably still disintegration. You need to figure out how you specifically express your type's excess.
Yep.
The unhealthy, like sitting in the worst parts of your type.
Just to say it again, all types aim at a core desire: security, control, or attention. And your excess will come in when your worst behavior and strategies try and get that aim.
Yep.
Got to name it.
Yep.
We did a very long series on villainy. It's my favorite of our series.
It's good.
Me and excess really wants to go back to talking about movies. In security, all of the types have what they want. You have gotten your motive. This is the move to security. When your type gets its motive, what you're motivated by, then you feel free. You feel loose. You feel like you have power. You feel like you have the world where it ought to be. And unfortunately, it's at that space that our worst self actually can emerge.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about villainy?
Villainy is the place where we weaponize our sins and shadow. Like our shadow becomes something that we wield to gain control or attention or security at the expense of ourselves and the people around us. It's where we use our power and the worst parts of ourselves to get what we want, and we do it in a way that is harmful. So like disintegration can lead to excess. And when you're in excess, you can actually draw on the security side, like the security of your type, and use that to actually justify your excess and say, you know what, it's okay because I'm doing this for this reason, and now I can live in excess because I think it's okay, and I'm gonna use my excess to take whatever I want from life.
That can be aimed at other people. That often can also, I suppose, be aimed at ourselves. With ones, just to start there, oftentimes the negative side of ones can go both ways. Ones who feel like they're good enough, who feel like they've obeyed all the rules, who, have done what's necessary, can all of a sudden abandon the rules in how they treat other people and even how they treat themselves. So ones in security will struggle with addiction.
Yeah.
This is where ones pick up alcohol. This is where ones pick up cocaine. This is where ones begin to say, I have created a structure in which I can abuse people.
Right.
And that is the villainous side of the ones.
Right. And normal ones will often, hide their abuse. Like the substance abuse in ones is usually unknown to everyone else because they do not want other people to know about it because it's wrong. Substance abuse in villainous in excess, like when ones do this in this really, really unhealthy way, it can often become not just substance abuse, but substance abuse at the expense of other people too.
Mm-hmm. Even very verbally justified.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that ones hide their abuse. They come out and say, this is entirely how things ought to be.
Right.
And are unashamed of doing dastardly things.
Yeah.
Because they have a reason for it.
Right.
There's an arguing from a place of defensiveness, but ones in security aren't defensive.
Nope.
Ones in security know they're right, know that they have whatever it is on their side, be it the government or God or money or whatever it is, and they're going to move into places where they are postured to dominate.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's where they're at, then they can just roll off. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And notice that, and there's a large measure of I have attained control. And because I've attained control, I can push into my worst elements, my worst impulses. The rules don't apply to me anymore.
Right. But they do apply to you. Let me tell you how you're wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pharisaical nature of ones really comes out there.
Mm-hmm.
Twos who have spent their whole lives helping other people. They've thrust all of their energy into elevating others. Suddenly, when they have the attention that they desire, have permission to really look at their inner life and what they need and who they are, and the dark side of that can be quite dark.
Yeah. And they pick up this, like, I am the only one who's capable of doing what other people need kind of aspect. And it just like twos in villainy start to display more of how we traditionally think about pride.
Yep.
Like twos, this is their primary struggle is elevating themselves in this sort of artificial way and identifying themselves with the things that they do to be helpful. And when they move to four in this really unhealthy way, they pick up this false sense of self that's two in villainy is I am going to help the world for their own good, and I'm the only one who can.
Yeah. There is a singularity and uniqueness to your ability to help everyone else. And the more that you feel secure, the more unique you are in the world.
Yeah.
To a very unhealthy spot.
And the more you're willing to do things that like twos in villainy have a much easier time embracing the favors aspect of two-ness.
Leverage.
Like leverage, huge. Yes, that's a great word for twos. And twos who are in this really unhealthy space is like they're fine with leverage.
Yeah. Twos are going to be the most emotionally intelligent number on the enneagram. And they will be able to pick out your points of weakness better than anyone else and maximize them for their own desires.
Yep.
And when twos are able to turn their eyes inward, they realize how much singular power they have in that space.
Yep.
And that's fulfilling in a very demonic way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Threes seem to me to have attained the attention they crave and move to 6. And in 6, it becomes more communal, but they are the queen.
Mhm.
They're the king of the tribe. They're going to elevate their crew alongside themselves, but they always get the throne.
Yeah.
But they are going to routinely elevate some people in that space. The villainous side comes in that they're going to crush quickly everyone else. But my folks, they're the ones that matter because they put me on the throne.
Mm-hmm. And like villainous threes, like the U.S. and sort of a lot of Western culture as we understand it is so like we're a 3 country and we elevate and celebrate some of the things about 3ness, about success driven and like accomplishment focused thinking and behavior in the world and when you get to this point where like you're really comfortable in an unhealthy way of being like that, then you get to the point where you are totally fine standing on the shoulders of the little guys and not giving a crap about taking care of them.
Yep. It's well said. At the end of the day, I'm a winner and my people are a winner, and the rest of the world, you're just losers.
Right.
And we all know you're losers.
Yeah.
And so you don't matter.
And that even goes for the people that helped me get here that I don't care about.
Yeah. If anyone who's in our club turns against me, man, I'm going to tear you down visually. I'm going to show everyone else that you are worthless quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my methods. And that's how I stay. It's not about power and control, but it's certainly about being on top of the mountain.
Yeah. And on top of the mountain in comparison to the people who are not on top of the mountain.
Comparison is the word.
Yeah.
8s, 9s, and 1s want control.
Yeah.
2s, 3s, and 4s want to thrive at comparison.
Yep.
Moving to 4s. How would you talk about 4s moving to the villainous side of 1?
There's an element of like organization and like systematizing the things that I want to uphold about myself, but it's also the comparison is still the key word in this 2, 3, 4, and I think for 4s it's actually like the height of their unhealth is comparison. When they move to 1 in really unhealthy ways, they pick up a certain level of judgmentalism that they didn't. It's like powering up their judgmentalism. Is like now it's extra strong now, and they not only say they not only compare themselves to the rest of the world, but now they also draw in some I deserve more than you do. So why don't I have the things that I deserve?
Yep. If we tackle this, it seems to me that all of the types, when they move into security, there's going to be some movement in their repressed center. They're going to elevate their repressed center. And for 4s, that means they're going to become active. And that judgmentalism is going to get active, and they're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's where 4s get villainous.
Yep.
If envy gets weaponized and it's suddenly their profound insight into themselves and the emotional life of others gets active in a toxic way.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite of all of our episodes, my favorite episode is our villainous deep dive into 4s, which is on Salieri in the what I think is the best movie ever made, which is Amadeus. It's all over that character.
Yeah. Well, and there's also
active.
there's a really strong like 1s are self-critical and like they want the world to be better, and they start with themselves. Fours in villainy don't understand why the world isn't working the way they think it should. So like that, like picking up some of that really unhealthy, like the world should be better than this, but it's much more like it's attention focused on the self, whereas one's focus on the self is like it's criticism and like the things that I need to do to get better. Fours, it's about attention, but it still has that view of like what's wrong with the world that I'm not getting the things that I deserve more than these other people because of comparison.
Yep. Fives in the same way are going to elevate their repressed center. They're going to start acting in the world on their knowledge. But on the villainous side, they're going to move into 8, not care about other human beings. They're going to enact things that ensure their security, and compounding, it's going to ensure their control at 8.
Yeah. You talked about 2s being the most emotionally intelligent and being able to sort of use that as a weapon in their villainy. 5s, it's not just emotional intelligence, it's observation of how things are and how the world works. And when they turn that into a weapon, they become incredibly powerful.
Yep.
And very dangerous.
Notice the danger there, and this is something that we're seeing more and more in culture. The New York Times, this is a random way to get to this, but the New York Times does a podcast called The Daily. They just did a dissection of billionaires and the study of billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
The 21st century might be the century of billionaires over and above nation states. Like there's individuals who are so profoundly skilled at hoarding wealth and the systems in which they acquire wealth that they take control.
Yep.
A lot of these folks are actually 5s that are just really good at thinking through the systems, thinking through how to acquire assets. And when they acquire assets, the thing that they get is control.
Yeah.
That can be done for positive goods. That can also be done for very negative outcomes.
Right.
The greed comes in here with 5s in terms of I have found security through my knowledge, but once I find security, then I push into power and domination and authority.
Yeah.
It's aggressive in nature.
And taking control of things for the sake of I want to be the one in charge of it.
Yeah.
I apologize to anyone who's going to be offended by this, but Elon Musk wants to own Twitter so that he's the one in charge of it. And there's no other reason.
That's it.
And part of that is because he thinks he's the one who can fix it and like do everything right. But really it's about him moving into a place where he gets to be the one who decides.
I understand the world. I have fruit that shows I understand the world because I'm the richest man in the world.
Right? Obviously.
And now I get to exert my influence over everything with the assets I have to gain the power that is the fruit of, of the security I seek.
Right.
And
it's not like a wise investment decision.
It's about power.
Yeah.
You're a nailed. You're a locked down security.
Yeah.
Once you're secure, then you can move into the world with authority.
Yep.
And aggression. That's the move from 5 to 8 is I was withdrawn, made sure that I felt protected and safe. But once I do, then I can push forward with power.
Yep.
6s. Again, I feel like this is a complicated move because the move from 6 to 9 is one where I no longer doubt myself. Now I feel comfortable and everything is okay. Everything is fine. I want to find that place of peace and calm.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that in terms of villainy?
Well, and the villainous 6 is sort of interesting because the things that they pick up at 9, I think, have more to do with what they're not doing than with what they are doing.
Okay.
Because at 9 they get you get some of that like striving for peace and like pulling back a little from self-doubt, but you also pick up like in an unhealthy way that the unhealthy things that you pick up at 9 are merging and not and the withdrawn stance and the lack of active. I mean, you pick up sloth. You start to not care about whether things get done, and like 6s who are naturally the type that is most likely to care and work for the common good. When they move to 9 in unhealthy ways, they stop caring about the common good.
Oh, that's a good move.
And really villainous 6s can actually move into places where they start actively working against the common good.
Yeah, in our deep dive into the villainous side of 6s, a lot of these characters in film end up being seconds. They end up being like partners to somebody else who's dastardly.
Yeah.
And they are moving against the common good.
Yep.
Darth Vader was one of the characters we elevated. And notice, in order to create peace and calm in his own body, and be at peace in the world and free himself from the fear of death and the fear of losing people he loves, he does horrendous damage to the common good.
Yep.
Brings us to 7s. We've talked about 7s in security being able to focus. But on the villainous side, focus can actually do great damage, yeah?
Yeah, if they're unhealthy, focus is actually going to break things.
Yep.
7s who want everyone to enjoy their life, when they are unhealthy, they want to break things. They want to bring everyone into the chaos, the monkey mind that they experience.
Right.
Yeah.
If you take character out of the picture, you don't want a lot of energy and competence. This is bad.
Right. Right.
You want people dumb and inert if they lack character.
Yeah. If they're looking to do damage, you don't want them to be good at it.
Right.
And 7s in unhealthy moves to security, they become good at spreading their particular brand of whatever it is they're trying to accomplish.
The thing is, in security, 7s get real focused. And that's where the real damage can take place, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think what you're trying to get at is that they can become singular.
Yes.
Like monkey mind and all of that stuff. Like one of the things they can get at 1 in a really unhealthy way is a focus on one specific thing that they think the world needs. And they will work very hard to make sure that the world gets that one thing.
Yeah.
And that there's a good chance, especially if they're villainous, there's a good chance that the world doesn't actually need that thing, that it's going to be bad and cause a lot of harm.
It's strange to say it. There's going to be a gluttonous energy there about the one thing.
Yeah.
So when we did our deep dive into villainous 7s and we talked about the Joker, there's focus in terms of executing the plan, but there's also a gluttony there in terms of longing for more and more and more and more. Once I nail this villainous activity, I'm going to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And nothing is ever satiating.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. 8s are going to begin to be helpful at 2. What could possibly go wrong, TJ?
You could snap your fingers and destroy half the universe. I think 8s in an unhealthy 2 space are going to do what's good for you, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
That's such a good way to describe villainous 8s.
When we did our MCU deep diving, got to Thanos. That was the reference there, just in case you're unfamiliar with Endgame. And
yeah,
the image of exerting power for your good is all over this. 8s insecurity means they got control.
Yep.
And they've gotten control by being aggressive. And now the target, the aim at 2, ends up being helpful.
Yeah.
But in villainy, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's good exercised in this very strange way. I know what's best for you.
Yeah. Like, so much of this is taken from Thanos because I think that so many of his lines are written so well, but this idea of I'm the only one who has the will to do what's good for everyone, who has the not just the power and the strength, but the will to do the thing that needs to be done. Therefore, I will do it.
And you like multiply that with the intensity that comes with lust for an 8.
Yep.
Like you have the passion that comes in and multiplies this toxic perspective.
Yeah.
And then things get really broken.
And then anything that I do that's harmful, so long as it serves this goal that I have in mind, which is actually for your good, even if you're dead by the time we get there.
Yep.
It's okay. Everything is justified because I'm doing something that's for the good of everyone else.
It's a strange place to be that 8s are going to find some of their feeling center insecurity at 2. But on a flip side, they're going to blow right through that stop sign.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how else to say that.
Like, one of their biggest struggles is in understanding how their behavior affects other people. And 8s are the type that is, in my experience, is most likely to not understand that other people don't see the world the way that they do.
Yeah.
So when they move to 2, they can get some empathy, some perspective. But when they move there in a villainous way, when they're already certain of their power and control and position in the world, and they move to 2, what they pick up is their own version of what they think everyone else needs.
Correct. Yeah. And we've talked about this in the past, but it's a my way expression of power.
Right. This is what's good for everyone. And if you don't see it that way, that's because you're wrong.
8s, 9s, and 1s all have a strong radar for justice.
Yeah.
It's all expressed very differently in all 3 of those types. But for 8s, it comes out that way.
Yep.
9s are also going to elevate their repressed center. They're going to start acting in the world at 3 in a villainous way.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about 9s and villainy?
Another great, just like in the discovery of how disintegration moves to excess moves to villainy in this, like 9s, it's really easy for me to understand because, I am a 9. And like this move of like really living in this place where I don't want to have to do anything. Once I get into a position of power, once I'm in security, I can actually figure out ways to manipulate the world around me in such a way to where I elevate myself so that I don't have to do anything ever. And I can surround myself with my creature comforts and create peace in my own space and let other people do all of the things that I don't want to do.
Because of the elevation of your status.
Yep. Because I have moved myself, I have achieved a level of power, position, authority, accomplishment, whatever else, that means that I have command of resources that allow me to live in excess.
I would have thought that was buffoonery. That just doesn't happen in our world, except for my present job. I work underneath a 9 who did exactly that. And I have no idea how he got the job he got.
Yeah. There are a lot of villainous or borderline villainous 3s and 8s in the world that we can point at that are on TV all the time, every day. And the ones that you don't hear about every day, those are the 9s.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
This was, again, to reference that New York Times billionaire thing. There's like a handful of billionaires who are 9s. They're the ones who don't appear on the Forbes 500 list because they don't want you to know about them.
Right. Yeah. And they're not doing things that are showy.
Yes.
Like they have done things to get them enough attention to elevate themselves to a position where they don't have to work for it anymore.
I suppose I took us off topic there, but that's the big thing.
Yeah.
It's how do I make the move to acquire the position where I have leverage and I can then take a big step back.
Yep.
I have the asset. I have the position, I have the title, and that allows me to pause.
Yeah. And I've even come to a place where I identify myself with my title, with my image so much that I actually think that I deserve the things that I like. Our villainous discussion was about Warden Norton from Shawshank Redemption, and like his
Brilliant movie.
just the identification of someone who thinks like he legitimately, like, out of in the way that he expresses himself, he legitimately believes that he is a good Christian who is allowing his prisoners to get beaten to death.
Yep.
Because he has identified himself with his position so much in order to gain the sort of control and comfort that he gets from being in that position.
Profits highly. Wants
Yep.
some newspaper articles written about him.
Yep.
He has done the politically savvy thing and ought to be acknowledged because you know why, TJ? His presence matters.
It matters. And you better put that in your newspaper
That's the way it is.
so that other people know about it too.
It's both villainy and self-promotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost juggling balls. It's such an... this is just not how I function, so I want to just name it. It's both self-promotion on one front, but it is very self-protective on different front. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a self-promotion to make sure that the image that has been crafted is held aloft in order to allow the space where I don't have to work that hard.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I got one big chess move. I'm going to make this move, and then I dominate the board, and I don't have to worry about the game anymore.
Yep.
Because my queen is in the middle of the board.
Yep.
And that means that you will do what I say. And it's only in this small sphere.
Right. Unlike many other types, there is not an end game. The end game is maintaining the position.
Yeah, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
That's important to note.
Yeah.
More and more, this is one of the many things I suppose I'm learning recently about motive. A lot of folks don't care about an end game.
Right.
And I think most of the types don't actually care about an end game. There's a desire for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's valuable. That's valuable to say about nines.
Yeah.
Nines want to carve out their position, enjoy that position, make it such that nothing changes and that things can be stagnant.
Yep. In perpetuity. Sounds wonderful. And it sounds like, to you, it sounds like a nightmare.
Well, if everything was amazing, and I'm down with peace and happiness if that's what perpetuity looks like. But
Oh, I don't care about general peace and happiness. In villainy, I only care about my peace and happiness.
right, that's what it would be. Friends, that's what we got in terms of our security, our stress, and what it looks like for us to be in excess in our center. Worth naming.
Not just worth naming. It's like this is recognizing this is essential to growth. You have to know these places and the ways that you like toy with villainy, the ways that you like experiment with excess, the ways that you consistently move into disintegration but try to come back from. Like, you have to know these things about yourself or you will not grow.
It's not a stretch to say that this is the first step. We set up 2 other steps. You got to know your type, which really just means you need to know the system and
Yep.
who you are in the system.
Yep.
You need to start talking to people. That's absolutely essential, especially before you start confessing the dark places.
Yep.
You got to get that rhythm of just saying, here's what I'm learning. Here's what I'm learning. Notice how exciting it is But eventually you got to come to terms with the diagnosis.
Yep.
This is the hardest step. It just is.
Yeah.
Confession's always the hardest step.
And this is also like, this is part of why so much teaching around the Enneagram starts here. It starts with a caricature of the worst part because you have to face this.
It's a huge part of Enneagram world that we're selling the problem half the time,
Right.
3/4 of the time. Let me show you your worst self so that you really know that we have a thumb on what matters in your life and where things are broken. Nobody comes to Enneagram when they have everything together.
Right.
None of us did.
Right.
I crashed and I fell into this. I don't know if that's TJ's story, but
I think I'm in the middle of my crash, so it's
it's becoming more and more helpful.
COVID, a baby, my mom died. Things are a mess, man. But I know the Enneagram, so it's going to help me get through it.
Man, I hate to say what else do you put in that space? I know how financial markets work, so I'm going to be okay.
No.
I know how football rules work, so I'm going to be okay.
Nope.
I've memorized 2 Corinthians, so I'm going to be okay. Man, Enneagram has some power.
Yeah, it does.
Because actually you say things are breaking, but I at least understand my motive, how I come to the world, how I interpret things, how my friends, family, the people who love me interpret things. And with that knowledge, it's going to help me navigate some huge swells in the little boat that I'm rowing.
Right. And it also, like, the low side, the fact of seeing my shadow and knowing what to look for helps keep me on my feet in spaces where I would otherwise be falling down.
I really wish I wouldn't be the sort of person to overplay our hand. But if you don't understand that that's where life happens, then you haven't suffered yet, you know? And if you look at this 6,000 years of human history that's been recorded, everybody who lives a life worth living gets to that spot.
Yep.
There's not one person who's worth talking about hasn't suffered immensely.
Right.
The art of living is understanding what it looks like to be in that space and to still thrive.
Yeah.
To navigate the choppy water.
To suffer well, if you will.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm kind of cranked up right now. I started into this conversation feeling kind of down. And now I'm like, come on.
Suffering, woo!
Here's the thing. You can't name a great movie that doesn't have significant adversaries.
There is no real story without suffering.
That is what meaning and purpose and thriving looks like.
Yep. And if you haven't significantly suffered in your life, I'm really sorry to tell you this. It's coming. It's going to come, and it's going to hit. And one of the best things that you can do is be prepared for when it does.
That's what the great life looks like. Nobody thinks that guy who inherited $2.5 billion from his daddy and is now sitting by the pool is living a great life.
Well, nobody who's healthy anyway.
The rest of us are enduring and we're pushing through trials. And that's actually where the beauty, the genuine flourishing of human beings takes place. So says I. Timestamp that.
So say we all.
You know what else is important, TJ?
What else?
Stars. People need to give our podcast stars.
Is it important, though? Is it?
Stars and gatherings that are connected to our website. It just feels skinny.
Yeah, this is a weird way to, like, how do you end this? Like we got to do our normal stuff.
People who are doing news right now, we're in a nuclear crisis. There's a war that might break out. Now we're going to cut to commercial and you can see Coca-Cola's ad.
Right.
It's like, what?
things are terrible. Here's an ad from Coke.
Well, I could skip it all and just say, hey, you got anything else, TJ?
I got nothing, man.
He's TJ Wilson, and he actually understands how reality works and what a thriving human soul is like. And I'm Jeff Cook, and I'm not quite as adept. But you know what, TJ?
What?
Who you aren't isn't interesting. I'm learning, growing, trying to figure out that dark side.
Love it.
You want to know why?
Why?
That's step 3.
We did it. Step 3.
You got to knock that sucker out.